I never considered myself an easily frightened person. Horror movies, ghost stories, urban legends. I enjoyed them all, but I never really believed in them. I always figured people exaggerated their experiences, letting their imagination run wild. That was before the night I spent home alone. It was a crisp autumn evening, and my parents had left for the weekend. My dad had a work retreat, and my mom tagged along, hoping to turn it into a mini vacation. I didn't mind. At 17, I enjoyed having the house to myself. I had plans: junk food, horror movies, and staying up way too late. The first few hours were fine. I ordered a pizza, played some video games, and then settled on the couch for a classic horror marathon. The house was quiet, aside from the occasional creaks of the old wooden floors shifting under the weight of time. But then, around 9 p.m., I heard it. A faint shuffling noise from upstairs. I paused the movie, listening carefully. The house was silent again. Maybe it was just the wind outside, or the wood contracting from the cold night air. I shook it off and continued watching. 5 minutes later, it happened again. Thump. This time, it was louder. More distinct, like a footstep. A slow, deliberate footstep. I muted the TV. My pulse quickened. The only other person who had a key to the house was my neighbor, Mrs. Kramer, and I highly doubted she'd be walking around upstairs at this hour. "Hello," I called out, hoping to hear nothing in return. Silence. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and cautiously made my way upstairs. The hallway was eerily still, the only sound coming from my own shaky breaths. Everything seemed normal at first. My parents' bedroom door was slightly open, but that wasn't unusual. I reached out and pushed it open. The room was empty, everything in place, except for one thing: the window. It was open, just a crack. A cold breeze blew in, sending a chill down my spine. I knew for a fact that it had been closed earlier. My parents were very particular about locking windows before leaving town. I swallowed the lump in my throat and shut the window, making sure to lock it this time. Maybe I had forgotten to check it before they left. Maybe I was just paranoid. I walked back downstairs, double-checked that all the doors were locked, and convinced myself it was nothing. At around midnight, I decided to go to bed. I made sure every light was off, locked my bedroom door, and slid under the covers. The house was silent now. Too silent. Lying in bed, I kept thinking about the window. What if someone had been inside the house before I even noticed? What if they were still here? I pushed those thoughts away and forced myself to sleep. Then, just as I was drifting off, I heard it. A whisper, right outside my bedroom door. I held my breath. My body went rigid. It was faint, barely audible, but undeniably real. A low, raspy breathing. Someone was outside my room. I stared at my locked door, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. My hands were trembling as I reached for my phone. My first instinct was to call my parents, but what could they do from miles away? The breathing got louder, and then scratch, scratch. Something dragged against my bedroom door. Slow, deliberate scratches. I felt like I was going to be sick. My stomach twisted into knots as I gripped my blanket, praying that this was some kind of horrible dream. I knew I had locked the door, but what if it wasn't enough? And then the doorknob twisted. I gasped, slapping a hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. I watched in terror as the knob rattled violently, as if someone, or something, was trying to force it open. I scrambled back against the wall, clutching my phone, fingers too shaky to dial 911. My mind was screaming at me to do something, but my body refused to move. Then, as suddenly as it started, silence. No breathing, no scratching, no rattling. I sat there frozen for what felt like an eternity. Minutes passed, maybe an hour. I didn't dare move. Eventually, I gathered the courage to creep toward the door. I pressed my ear against it, straining to hear anything. Nothing. Taking a deep breath, I slowly unlocked the door and yanked it open. The hallway was empty, but there was something outside my door. On the wooden floor, deep, jagged scratch marks, like claw marks. I wanted to believe it was some kind of sick prank. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me, but I knew better. I didn't go back to sleep. I couldn't. I sat in my bed, wide awake, clutching my phone with 911 dialed, ready to press call at the slightest noise. Around 3 a.m., I heard something again. Not outside my door, not from upstairs, from downstairs. The sound of footsteps, slow, heavy, deliberate. I wasn't alone. My body refused to move at first, every instinct telling me to stay put, to hide under the covers like a little kid. But if I stayed in my room, I would never know what was out there. I had to see. Grabbing the heaviest thing I could find, a metal baseball bat, I crept out of my room. My heart was hammering against my ribs as I descended the staircase. The living room was dark, save for the faint glow from the streetlights outside. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. And then, I saw it. A shadow, standing in the corner of the room, not moving, not breathing, just standing there. I blinked, my vision adjusting to the darkness. And then, the shadow moved. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I ran. I bolted out the front door, barefoot, half-dressed, not caring about anything except getting away. I sprinted to my neighbor's house, pounded on the door until my fists hurt. Mrs. Kramer answered, startled to see me in such a state. I told her everything. She called the cops. When they arrived, they found nothing. No signs of a break-in, no footprints, nothing. But when they checked the living room, they found one thing: the front door, unlocked. I knew I'd locked it before going to bed. Someone, or something, had been inside. And to this day, I don't know what it was. I never stayed home alone after that night. Because I wasn't alone. I never was. I never thought much about being home alone. I had done it plenty of times before. My parents worked late, my little sister was at a sleepover, and I had the entire house to myself for the night. It was supposed to be a normal evening. Watch some TV, make some popcorn, and scroll through my phone until I got tired. But that night, something happened that still haunts me to this day. It started with a noise, a faint, almost imperceptible scratching sound coming from somewhere above me. I was sitting on the couch, mindlessly watching a sitcom when I heard it. At first, I thought it was just the wind rattling the house, or maybe a squirrel on the roof. It was an old house, so strange noises weren't uncommon. But then, the scratching turned into shuffling. I muted the TV, straining my ears. The sound was coming from inside the walls. More specifically, from the air vents. It was slow and deliberate, like something was crawling through them. I swallowed hard, my body tensing. My first thought was that a raccoon or some other small animal had somehow gotten in. That had to be it. I grabbed my phone and opened the flashlight, shining it toward the nearest vent. The noise stopped. The house was eerily silent now. I let out a shaky breath and tried to convince myself that I was imagining things. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and tried to shake the uneasy feeling creeping over me. But just as I took a sip, I heard it again. Thump. A heavy thump from inside the vents, like something large had just dropped inside them. I nearly dropped my glass. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. This wasn't a raccoon. It wasn't a squirrel. It was too big. I grabbed a broomstick from the pantry, and despite every instinct screaming at me to leave, I made my way toward the hallway vent. I hesitated for a moment before kneeling down and unscrewing the metal cover. The vent was dark, a gaping black hole leading into the walls of the house. I swallowed hard and hesitantly shined my flashlight inside. At first, I saw nothing but dust and the metal tunnel curving deeper into the house. But as I moved the light further, my breath caught in my throat. There were fingerprints in the dust, human fingerprints. I yanked my hand back, my entire body breaking out in goosebumps. That was impossible. No one could fit inside there, right? I stood up quickly, heart racing, and that's when I heard it. A whisper, low, raspy, and right behind me. I spun around, my flashlight shaking in my grip. No one was there, but the air felt different, heavy. I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes on the hallway. I needed to call someone, my parents, the police, anyone. I reached into my pocket for my phone. And then, from inside the vent, I heard a voice. "I see you." I screamed. I don't remember much after that. My body moved on instinct. I grabbed my keys, bolted for the front door, and ran to my neighbor's house barefoot. I pounded on their door until they answered, tears streaming down my face as I tried to explain what had just happened. The police arrived within minutes. They searched the house from top to bottom, but they found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no animals in the vents, nothing out of place. Except for one thing, the vent cover in the attic. It was off. The screws were missing, and there were fingerprints on the inside. Human fingerprints. They never found anyone. No explanation. No evidence of a break-in. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw. And every now and then, when I'm alone, I swear I still hear something shuffling through the vents. I always loved being home alone. The quiet, the freedom. It was something I looked forward to. No parents nagging me about cleaning my room, no little brother running around making noise. Just me, a cozy couch, and my favorite horror movies. Ironically, it was a horror movie night that changed my life forever. It was a Friday night, and my parents had gone to visit my aunt in another city. They wouldn't be back until the next afternoon, so I had the entire house to myself. I ordered pizza, grabbed a blanket, and settled in for a marathon of classic horror films. The house was dark, except for the flickering glow of the TV, and the only sound was the eerie music from the movie. The whole atmosphere was perfect: chilly air outside, a dimly lit room, and my cat Milo curled up beside me. I felt completely at ease. Then the knocking started. At first, it was so soft I barely noticed it over the sounds from the TV. A light tap, tap, tap against the living room window. I paused the movie and turned my head toward the noise, expecting to see a tree branch swaying against the glass. But there was no tree outside that window. Our backyard was fenced in, and beyond it was nothing but an empty field. I frowned and stood up, walking slowly toward the window. My heart pounded a little faster, but I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a bird had flown into the glass, or maybe my imagination was just messing with me after watching so many horror movies. I reached out and pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. Just the dark backyard and the reflection of my own face staring back at me. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding and laughed at myself. I was just being paranoid. Shrugging it off, I returned to the couch, pressed play, and tried to forget about it. Then it happened again. Tap, tap, tap. This time, it was louder, more deliberate. My body froze and a wave of ice-cold fear washed over me. Someone was outside. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, my fingers trembling as I walked back toward the window. I hesitated before pulling the curtain aside again, my heart hammering against my ribs. And that's when I saw it. A face, but not a normal face. It was pale, too pale, almost corpse-like. The skin looked stretched too tightly over the bones, and the eyes were hollow, completely black. It had no eyebrows, no hair, and its lips were twisted into a grotesque grin that sent a jolt of terror through my entire body. I stumbled backward, dropping my phone as a scream caught in my throat. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, grinning at me, its head tilted slightly, as if studying me. My breathing became ragged, and my hands were slick with sweat as I scrambled to grab my phone. My fingers fumbled to call 911, but before I could dial, the knocking started again. Faster, harder. Bang, bang, bang. It was pounding on the glass now, the force shaking the entire window. My mind raced. The back door was locked, right? The windows. Had I checked them all? Panic clawed at my chest as I fought to think clearly. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The silence that followed was almost worse than the noise. I didn't dare move. I didn't dare breathe. I just stood there, phone clenched in my trembling hand, waiting. Then, "Let me in." The voice was low, raspy, and right outside the glass. I ran. I didn't even think. I bolted to my room, slammed the door shut, and locked it. My breaths came in sharp gasps as I crawled under my bed, clutching my phone as I finally dialed 911. The operator's voice sounded distant, like an echo in my panicked mind. "There's someone outside my house," I whispered, barely able to get the words out. "Can you see them?" the operator asked. "No," I said. "They were at the window, but—" I stopped. My stomach twisted into knots. My skin felt ice cold. The knocking had started again. But this time, it wasn't coming from the window. It was coming from inside the house. My blood ran cold. The realization hit me like a freight train. Whatever that thing was, it was already inside. I clamped a hand over my mouth, trying to stifle my ragged breathing. My eyes darted to the crack under the door. My bedroom was on the second floor, and there was no way anyone could have come in through the front door without me hearing, but the sound was unmistakable. Tap, tap, tap. Software. Teasing. As if it knew I was hiding. As if it was enjoying this. Tears welled in my eyes as I pressed my body deeper under the bed. My heart pounded so loudly, I was afraid it would hear me. The tapping moved, slowly circling my room, knocking on the walls. Then, silence. Minutes passed, maybe hours. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just lay there, paralyzed by fear, waiting for something to happen. The sound of sirens in the distance made me snap back to reality. The police. I heard the front door burst open, followed by the heavy footsteps of officers calling out my name. I finally crawled out from under the bed, my body weak and trembling. I rushed to the door, unlocking it with shaky fingers before running into the hallway. The officers met me at the top of the stairs, their flashlights sweeping through the house. "There was someone here," I gasped. It was at the window then inside the house. The officers exchanged looks before spreading out to search the place. They checked every room, every closet, every possible hiding spot. But they found nothing. No open doors, no broken windows, no signs of forced entry. But one thing was off. The back door? It was unlocked. I swore I had locked it. I knew I had. The officers assured me that they'd stay for a while, just in case. I called my parents, barely able to explain what had happened through my tears. They left immediately, driving through the night to get home. When they arrived, my mom held me for what felt like hours. My dad checked the security cameras, but when he played the footage, there was nothing. No strange figure, no knocking, no movement at all. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. The worst part, that wasn't the last time. Some nights when I'm alone, I still hear it. Tap, 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 always at the window, always waiting. That's all for today's bone-chilling tale. The Thing at the Window. It's one of those stories that makes you question the safety of your own home, even in the comfort of your own space. The feeling of being watched, of hearing something that shouldn't be there, can be unnerving, and it's a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying experiences happen when we least expect them. Whether it's strange knocks on the window in the dead of night or hearing voices inside an empty house, we can never quite know what's lurking just beyond our vision, or even right behind us. Home Alone horror stories like this one tap into that deep, primal fear we all share. The fear of being alone, but never truly being alone. The terrifying idea that even in our most private spaces, there's something or someone that's watching, waiting, and maybe even wanting to get inside. It's a fear we can't escape, no matter how much we lock the doors or close the windows. If you enjoyed this story and want more chilling experiences that will make your skin crawl, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support is what keeps these terrifying tales coming, and we have many more to share. Every like, every share helps bring these spine-tingling stories to a larger audience, so together we can embrace the fear and thrill of the unknown. But here's something else to consider. What if you have a story of your own? A true horror experience that still haunts you, even when you're trying to forget it. If you've ever had a night that left you too scared to sleep, or a strange occurrence that still makes your heart race when you think about it, we want to hear from you. Your true horror story could be the next one we tell. Who knows? Maybe it'll be featured in our next video. and your terrifying experience could send shivers down the spines of others. So if you have a story that fits the bill, one that's as creepy, chilling, and spine-tingling as the best of them, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with us. You never know. The next story we tell might just be yours. Until then, remember, stay safe, stay alert, and always trust your instincts. Because in the world of horror, sometimes the scariest things aren't the monsters under the bed. They're the ones watching from the window,